We worked with the Iowa legislature to build a consensus and to come together for Iowans and to meet the critical needs of this state. I'm proud that Iowa is one of the best managed states in the country, and we've kept our financial house in order, even under difficult circumstances. With the bird flu that we went through last year, losing 30 million birds, and with the cost of production of our major commodities, corn and soybeans being below uh, what farmers can get for them. There's no question that declining revenues with a tough farm economy and lower commodity prices made it more difficult. Uh, and we are living in a very competitive global economy today. And this required me, of course, to put the budget together based on December revenue estimates. And under the spending reforms that we've had in place for a long period of time, the legislature must either use that December revenue estimate or if March is lower, use that. In this case, this year, a revenue estimate that came out in March was $46.1 million below the December revenue estimate, which made their job that much more difficult. We worked with them through that difficult time and they made tough decisions. So that's what Iowans elect us to do. And I'm proud that we were able to do that. And I know that not everybody's satisfied because there just wasn't enough money to do all the things that people wanted. But I applaud the legislature for working together with a divided legislature to accomplish this and to keep Iowa in a solid fiscal basis. I'm pleased that once again, we're able to deliver a budget for Iowa families, for Iowa education, and for businesses and taxpayers that's balanced and is on a sound footing to keep Iowa going in a positive direction. In my condition of the state address, I highlighted the need to address several subjects, including water quality and building our leadership in renewable energy and criminal justice reform. First, I'd like to talk about water quality. Iowans elected a divided legislature, and in a divided legislature, it's never easy to get things done. But that is no excuse for us not to boldly address tough issues like water quality. And in January, Lieutenant Governor Kim Reynolds and I stood with U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack, and we offered a bold plan to address both water quality and to extend funding for educational infrastructure. Um, we pointed out that this was a framework and that we were open to considering other options and alternatives, but felt this is an issue that needed to be addressed. Um, I'm pleased that the House of Representatives responded and they worked throughout the session. A bill addressing water quality started in the Agriculture Committee, went through the Ways and Means Committee, went through the Appropriations Committee, and was eventually approved on a 2-to-1 vote with a strong bipartisan majority. And it used essentially the distribution system that we had recommended in our bold initiative for water quality. It allocated $732 million over the next 13 years for water quality projects, ramping them up over time, similar to our recommendations. And we worked closely with legislators on this proposal, and we supported this approach as it went through the House of Representatives. However, I was disappointed that the Senate Democratic leadership decided to bury this bill that passed the House with a bipartisan majority in committee and offered no alternative. Water quality is a critical issue. It's an issue that needs to be addressed. And the Lieutenant Governor and I will continue to work on this issue through the interim to build support for a long-term funding solution to address water quality. I have already last week and frankly over the last month visited a number of counties and seen firsthand some water quality projects that are in place in places like Tama County and Greene County. And this week I'm going to be, I think, in Pocahontas County and Wright County and Hamilton County to see firsthand things like cover crops and bioreactors and edge of field um, edge of field projects that use wetlands to filter out nitrates. And these are examples. And in fact, in Tama County, I heard how in that uh, Cedar River watershed, the city of Cedar Rapids and federal and state soil conservation and water conservation people are working together to prevent flooding and to improve water quality. The second major issue that I mentioned in my condition of the state address was the opportunity to build on our leadership in renewable energy. We can be very proud. Iowa leads the country in ethanol, biodiesel, and wind energy. Uh, and there's a number of high quality jobs in Iowa related to it. Farmers get income from having those wind turbines on their property. And obviously, the market for renewable fuels, it makes us one of the cheapest places to buy fuel. And in fact, if you buy E85 in Iowa, it's down around $1.59 a gallon. Is what I noticed over the weekend. Iowa is already a leader in wind energy. We just surpassed 31% of our electricity being generated by wind. And just a couple of weeks ago, the largest economic development investment in our state's history was announced by Mid-American Energy when they announced their intentions to build additional wind turbines in this state totaling $3.6 billion, about twice the biggest investment we've ever had, creating an additional 2,000 megawatts of power by the year 2020. That would put Iowa, we're already the first state to reach 30%. That would put Iowa being the first state in the nation to achieve 40% of our energy coming from wind. And we already know that it's made a difference in attracting companies like Google and Microsoft and Facebook to our state. We anticipate others, manufacturing plants will also find Iowa more attractive because of this. And the neat thing about it is they're able to do this without any increase in utility costs for businesses or for residents. So Mid-American Energy, I think, reported that they are the 7th lowest in the nation. And obviously, reliable, low-cost, renewable energy is a great asset as we work to grow this state's economy. Iowa is on the cutting edge of creating thousands of jobs and being one of the greenest states in the nation when it comes to our power. So I'm proud that on April 7th at Iowa State University, I also had the opportunity to sign another important bill that builds on our leadership in renewables, and that is the bio-renewable chemical tax credit. That tax credit is the first of its kind in the whole country, and it's already caused a lot of buzz. And I will be speaking, I think, in June out in the West Coast at the World Bio Conference, as I did last year in Montreal. And this year I'll be able to report that we have this new law coming into effect, which I think will be a great asset for Iowa. And I anticipate, as I look to the future, we have 43 ethanol plants and 12 biodiesel plants and 2 cellulosic ethanol plants. I would not be surprised that we'll see other complexes like we already have in Eddyville, or that is being developed at Fort Dodge, where we have these ethanol plants throughout the state of Iowa. And this will again spur additional renewable resources and generate building block chemicals for all kinds of products that will be used by household products as well as feed, food, pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals. And this is something that I think we can be very proud of, and one of the biggest accomplishments of the session. As I said at Iowa State University, this is a very big deal, and I'm excited about what it means for our state and how it positions us for the jobs in the future. And this is an area that is estimated there's going to be significant growth. This credit sends a message that Iowa is truly open for business, that we're a state that's a leader, but we're not resting on our laurels. We're looking how we can be even more competitive in this biochemical industry of the future. Lastly, I'm proud of the efforts and the steps that were taken to create a fairer and more equitable criminal justice system in our state. Legislation reached my desk that will help combat human trafficking, addresses confidentiality for juvenile records, and sentencing reform. All of these are significant reforms that will make a big difference in our criminal justice system and make it fair and help prevent the stigma that some people that maybe committed a minor crime as a juvenile have had to live with all their life. So over the next 30 days, Lieutenant Governor Reynolds and I and my staff, our staff will carefully review all the bills passed in the closing days of the session. As you know, I have only 3 days to sign or veto bills when the legislature is in session, but 30 days once they adjourn. So we'll be doing a careful and thorough review as we always do. And we'll be looking at it as to maintaining our budget that is balanced, one that fits in our 5-year budget projections and honors the commitments that we've made to the people of the state. I'm proud of the fact that we are fulfilling the commitments we made in the Teacher Leadership and Compensation Program. Next school year is another $50 million, which brings it to $150 million. The Lieutenant Governor and I have visited many of those schools and had a chance to talk firsthand with teachers and school administrators on how this program is being implemented. I'm also hearing as I travel around the state, the difference that the property tax relief for commercial property has made to Main Street businesses. I was at the Main Street Awards ceremony over the weekend, and it's exciting to see all the communities that are revitalizing their main streets. The Main Street program has celebrated its 30th anniversary. It's been a great program, but the reduction in the commercial property tax is just one more incentive that has made it more attractive for people to reinvest in main streets across the state. We will continue to adhere to our conservative budgeting principles that Iowans elected us to implement and reject bad budgeting practices that led to the reckless across-the-board cuts that we experienced in the previous administration. So with that, I would open it to your questions. Yes, sir.
Governor, you talked about how you want to continue this discussion on water quality.
Yep.
What are you going to come back with next year? Is it going to be the same proposal, or are you going to retool that program? Or if the Republicans take control of the Senate, is the House plan going to be the plan that's adopted next year?
Well, first of all, we worked through the legislative process throughout the whole session. And we said when we unveiled our plan that it was a framework and that we intended to also work with the federal government, with Secretary Vilsack, on coordinating what the state does with federal dollars. We intend to continue that. And we are pleased with the action that the House took. And we're gonna review what they approved with, a strong bipartisan vote. I think the vote was 66-33. And we're going to continue to talk and visit with people that are involved in water quality projects around the state. I've been doing that, and I will continue to do that throughout the summer and fall. And with that, and with the discussions with legislators, just as we did when we were working on our teacher leadership program and on our property tax relief program, those two programs, which were passed in 2013, we worked, it was the 3 sessions before we finally got those done. We think water quality is critically important and should not be put off. But we're going to try to learn from what we see in visiting the field and learning what's working, and also the experience that we had in going through the legislative process. But it's a top priority. that we're going to continue to work on and hopefully build on what was learned and the progress that was made this year.
Senate Majority Leader Gronstal kind of described it as a little collaboration between the chambers and said next year we have to talk to each other instead of at each other, and sort of reference that everybody had their own idea. You had your own idea, GOP had their own idea. Do you have any regrets about maybe some type of lack of communication before?
There was plenty of communication, and we said from the very beginning that it wasn't our way or no way. In fact, we accepted all of those changes that went on through the House of Representatives, and it passed with 66 votes. So he's the one that blocked it. He's the one that didn't let the bill be debated. So I think, and we were willing to accept Senate amendments to the House passed bill. So what I'm saying is he's trying to blame somebody else for his unwillingness as a majority leader to debate an important issue. I think he's going to have to be held accountable for that, and it'll be up to the voters to decide. But the fact is there was plenty of communications, and we were talking with the Senate Democrats as well as members of the House throughout this whole process. And they had 2 or 3 different plans, but they had no consensus in their caucus. And then he refused to even debate the House passed bill. That's the facts.
Whether the Senate Democrats objected to taking money away, in effect, taking money away from other priorities in the budget. That seems to be, is that just a non-starter, or to raise taxes or to take, as Senator Gronstal wants to do, take ending balances in the years when we're flush? Is that just a non-starter for you?
Well, first of all, there's not much of an ending balance. And I don't think this should be put off until the state has a big ending balance. So that is not a workable solution, and he knows it. Raising taxes, some of the members of his caucus wanted to do that. He wasn't willing to consider that. So we proposed a plan that had the support of Secretary Vilsack as well as the Lieutenant Governor and I, a number of superintendents and agriculture leaders. And we worked throughout the session and offered a willingness to adjust and change it. And we did. And we were pleased with what the House passed. So I think we made great progress. The problem was the Senate leader just wasn't willing to get serious about doing it this year. But we're going to continue to work on it. And I'm very optimistic that we'll get it done next year.
Your description of these things are non-starters is sort of how they've described.
No, I didn't say anything's a non-starter. I never said that. That's Gronstal's words, not mine.
That's my words, actually.
Okay, it's your words. You're just repeating what he said. But I guess what I'm saying is we are open to looking at alternatives and different ideas. I put together what I thought was a bold idea that provided something the schools really want, and that is an extension of the 1 cent sales tax for school infrastructure, but would share some of the growth in that with water quality. Okay, when we realized they weren't willing to share any of the growth, then the House came up with another alternative that provided a different mechanism for funding, but a very similar distribution system to address the issue of point source pollution from municipalities and non-point pollution, which comes from farms and golf courses and lawns and everything else. And what I find is there is significant bipartisan support for taking action in those areas.
Another issue this session was over medical marijuana. I'm curious if you will be supportive of a plan that includes a manufacturing system, which is what advocates really wanted out of the legislation that was moving through the session.
Well, this is a controversial issue, and it's an issue that I've said I have an open mind on, and I want to try to address the concerns that people that have these medical ailments have in a compassionate way without having unintended consequences of having marijuana get in the hands of people who want to use it for recreational purposes.
What about the state of Minnesota? That governor says he's willing to consider some sort of arrangement.
We're certainly open to looking at that.
So again, is there a future in Iowa where there's a manufacturing system in-house?
again, this is an issue that is a very controversial issue that I've indicated a willingness to work with the General Assembly on. But we also need to be cognizant of the concerns the medical community and the law enforcement community have expressed about unintended
Do you
consequences.
think there would be unintended consequences of having a manufacturer in Iowa that just produce the oils?
You know, that's a good question. You know, if it's just limited to the oil, that might be something that could be looked at. So that's why I said I keep an open mind, but again, there's a lot of different ideas and a lot of different proposals out there, and nothing reached a consensus point during this last session. But I will continue to be open to considering the different ideas. But I've tried to lay out my viewpoint, and that is addressing the concerns of the people that have the health issues, but doing it in a way that doesn't create unintended consequences.
There was,
Governor, could I just ask you, one of the things that got a lot of debate among the public and was adopted by the Senate right at the end, previously adopted by the House, was the anti-BDS resolution, anti-boycott resolution for Israel. Have you got any thought about that one way or another? I think it passed by pretty significant votes in both.
I support it, and we will have, yes. And I think we will have a signing ceremony on that issue.
Really?
Absolutely.
Why is that? Can you just tell us more?
Well, first of all, I just think it's wrong to be boycotting our friend and ally, Israel. The lieutenant governor just recently returned from a trade mission to Israel. I think the Des Moines partnership went there last year. There's a lot of opportunity for us to do business with them. And I don't believe we ought to be penalizing Israel of all countries. They're one of our best friends and allies. And so I think this is something that I strongly support, and I'm going to have a signing ceremony for it.
There's language in a budget bill establishing additional oversight for the Medicaid managed care program. You have the authority to veto that stuff out. Do you intend to accept the compromise that the two chambers came to?
Well, first of all, let me say that the new managed care system has more oversight than we've ever had in history. And we want to do everything we can to make sure that we're working together to improve the health of Medicaid recipients in the state of Iowa. I will, with this bill, as with all others, carefully review it to decide what. But obviously, what passed was not nearly as expensive, as onerous as some were advocating earlier in the session. But, you know, I want to wait and look at the details of it to decide what's workable. We have no problem with oversight. We think the more people know about the improved system, the additional oversight and management that we have, the better coordination to improve people's health, I think the better it's going to be.
there was debate this year as well over, kind of towards the end, over this $9.7 million for DOT on salaries. In the end, when the Senate voted, I think one of the senators, or Senator McCoy, kind of described it as, we'll be back next year for the other half. Expressing concerns about potential layoffs and safety hazards of construction season. Is that a concern for you, or?
Well, I think they reached a reasonable compromise, but in the middle. And I have a lot of respect for Paul Tribino as the director of the DOT to make this work. I am excited about the fact we're going to have the biggest construction season in history because of the additional resources the Road Use Tax Fund has. And we want to move forward as expeditiously as possible to rebuild these roads and bridges that are needed. That's a commitment that was made last year and we want to fulfill. But I think that we need to do that with the budget compromise that was worked out.
So could I just clarify, are you going to try to do something with Trombino to try to avoid layoffs? You know, the concern was that they weren't going to be plowing snow, they weren't going to be filling potholes. Are you going to try to avoid that situation?
Well, yeah, I don't believe in firemen first. And I believe that Paul Trombino is a problem solver and he's dealt with a lot of problems. I will say the DOT has reduced the size of its administration significantly over the last decade or so. And I know that when Paul got here, we had the flood of 2011 along the Missouri River, and he put together an innovative way to have 3 contractors work around the clock to rebuild that. And even though the FEMA only gave us, we're supposed to get 6 months to rebuild, we get 6 months from when the flood started in June, not when the water went down in September. We still did it. And so I'm going to ask Paul to do the best he can with the resources the legislature has provided him. And he's innovative enough that hopefully we can do that and not have to lay people off.
Governor, I know you're an advocate of transparent budgeting. Why do you and the legislature persist in not budgeting for negotiated salary increases and instead play this shell game where you have to just take the money out of the budget somehow?
Well, that's a decision the legislature has made. And we respect the fact that they feel that this is a way that we can make government become more efficient by finding ways to live with the, and this year, I guess it was particularly important because of the fact that, revenue was down and consequently there wasn't the money to do that. And consequently, but this is,
You don't think that's a transparent budget practice, do you?
oh, I think it's transparent as can be. I mean, everybody knows it. It's very clear. I don't think you could be any more transparent than saying up front, you're going to have to eat these increases that an arbitrator has offered out of your budget. What could be more transparent than that? It's very clear, very open, and it's just a matter of agencies have to make tough decisions with the fact that they're not going to have additional money to deal with that.
I just want to ask one more question on water quality. You said you're open to considering anything. Would that include this 3 8 cents of an increase in the sales tax?
Well, I don't think Iowans want to see their taxes increased, but we're going to be willing to look at all kinds of things. But
But not that one.
well, not raising taxes. The 3/8 cent, I would say, is something that we'd be willing to consider, but not by raising taxes. There's other ways, I think, to do it.
How's that?
Well, you'll hear about it in the future, I'm sure.
Follow up to Patty's question with the salaries, there had been some spotlight on the Department of Cultural Affairs this year over infrastructure funds and using some of that money for salary. And they defended it, but at the same time, there's new rules with the infrastructure money that would spell that out a little bit more about how you use that money, and it can't be for department salaries. Are you supportive of that? Is this where departments have to get creative? Are you encouraging that type of?
Well, remember when I came in as governor in January 2011, the state was facing a big financial mess created by the previous administration and Democratic legislature that had used one-time money for ongoing expenses and had not managed our resources well. So we had to make tough decisions. And I told the department heads, we don't have the money to fund arbitrator awarded salary increases. So you're going to have to do that as people retire. You hire. So the way our system works is you have a lot of people that retire at the high end, and then the new people you hire at the lower end of the salary scale. So that gives some flexibility to departments as they have people quit or retire to replace them with people that are less expensive. And so that's one of the ways they can manage. The other thing is we can look at efficiencies and technology that can eliminate. So when somebody retires, not replacing them. And we've done that. We're down about 2,000 employees from when I took office. And we've done that because we've looked at better, more efficient ways to deliver services in less expensive ways.
Infrastructure money for salaries using one-time money for an ongoing expense.
No, it's not one-time money.
Infrastructure money.
Infrastructure money from the gambling tax fund?
Infrastructure, well, Well, okay. Infrastructure money. First of all, we have an ongoing source for infrastructure from gambling receipts. The problem is, under the Culver administration, they decided to go out and borrow a bunch of money, which they called the iJobs program. And we're paying it back to the tune of $55 million a year. So that $55 million a year that comes off the top is money that could have gone for infrastructure, but now it's going to pay for debt. And that's the reason why I ran for governor, to stop that debt scheme and to get Iowa on a pay-as-you-go basis. Iowans support that. Iowans abhor debt. They don't want the state to be in more debt. And that's the reason why it's important that we do things on a pay-as-you-go system going forward. The problem is we still have to pay back 25 years. I think we're in year six of paying back that $55 million a year.
But should infrastructure money be used for salaries for department directors?
Is my understanding was it was authorized under that legislation. I don't agree with it, but it was authorized under that legislation. And I understand if the department head is spending a portion of their time working on infrastructure projects, then a portion of that would be appropriate.
Lawmaker said that was never clear with the language. But however, now we're moving forward with a new legislative session there's language in the infrastructure rules now that would kind of stop that practice. Are you supportive of that?
Yes. I guess my feeling is I want to basically manage our state government in the best, most efficient and economical way that we can. And I want to do it that is consistent with the sound budgeting practices. That clearly wasn't done in the previous administration. And that's why we've tried to do as best we can. We've tried to work very closely with the state auditor when the auditor identifies things that are inappropriate or using one-time money for ongoing expenses. We've tried to correct that, but we have to work through the legislature, and we have to work through the legislative process to get these things done.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.